time of the week for the Israel Update with Hanok Young. And how you doing over there, man? At least you're smiling.
Yeah, it's we're living in strange times.
It
There's no
is.
doubt.
It is. And I would just like to tell you as we start out that, maybe you ought to send an email to Chuck Schumer and give him a little bit of advice that if he'd like to poke his nose into Israel politics, he might want to, first of all, make Aliyah and then become an Israeli citizen, and then he would have the right to say anything. But that would only be on one condition, that you guys keep him and don't send him back.
Well, it's funny to start off with there because, you know, well, first of all, we need to go into
Yeah.
Rafah. We need to clean out the terrorists. And this is a big issue with America. This is a big issue, big split between the US government and all of Israel,
Yeah.
not just my government, all of Israel. And
Yeah.
I've got some statistics here to
Good.
share in a few moments. But it seems to me, because again, more and more people, for better or worse, are relying upon me to give kind of the insight behind what's going on. So, what I've been able to figure out, at least it seems, because, Blinken is coming again.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, Gallant, our defense minister, is going to the US. Evidently, he's been summoned. Lloyd Austin, America's Secretary of State, he's all involved in this. So it appears that America isn't necessarily against an Israeli operation in Rafah, but rather it's a debate whether it should be laser tag or paintball.
Mm.
I mean, it is so absurd. Weeks go by. I have now been back home for 3 weeks in a day, and it just seems to be the same cycle of stories.
Hmm.
Um, Chucky Schumer. Now he's the Senate Majority Leader. Uh, is the senator from my former state of residence, New York, and the guy is an absolute moron. There's no doubt about it. Now, the thing that's interesting, I want to point out to our listeners, and if you don't know what we're talking about, Google Schumer on Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, because one of the things that frustrates me, I experienced it a few weeks ago in America, and I occasionally get notes from people, actually from over the world, all over the world, who will ask me, "So what's going on in Israel?" And I'll say, "What in particular are you
Hmm.
referring to?" Assuming they want some kind of background into a story they read. Well, the problem is, in some cases, they haven't read any stories.
Yeah.
So they know Israel's at war, but it's like 160 whatever days already, and it's what's going on? Anyway, so Schumer was not talking to us Israelis. He was talking to Americans.
Hmm.
He was talking to the Democratic Party, the people who've been agitated that Biden has been too pro-Israel. Wasn't me who said it. And they're really trying to show that they're, strong arming Israel. The irony is he's blaming it all on Bibi Netanyahu. Now, as our listeners have known for years, I am not a fan of Bibi Netanyahu. However, and here's the statistics here. More than 80% of Israelis want to see this war concluding with the destruction of Hamas.
Yeah.
This is not a Netanyahu thing. In this case, Netanyahu is speaking on behalf of the vast majority of the people of Israel.
Hmm.
79% of Israelis say there is no chance whatsoever for peace with the so-called Palestinians, as I like to say, those Arabs who self-identify as Palestinians, at this time. So here's Chucky Schumer saying, well, the two-state solution. No one here
No, no,
is thinking that.
no.
Uh, and for many of the leftists in our country, this whole war, massacre, all the atrocities involved have really rattled their cage. A woman who lived in what's called Otif Aza, the Gaza envelope, stated something, and it was a shocking interview with her. She was one of the survivors, obviously, and she said it didn't surprise her that the terrorists from Hamas invaded and did what they did.
Hmm.
What surprised her, though, was the average quote unquote civilian Gazan, the innocent Gazans who followed immediately in their wake to rob,
Hmm.
burn down buildings, and destroy things. Now, our troops are routinely finding items
Oh yeah.
through Gaza that were stolen. So that's one element to it. The other statistic that's really kind of interesting is 63% of Israelis believe that we need to go to war with Hezbollah either immediately
Wow.
or as soon as Gaza is concluded.
Wow.
It doesn't mean we're going to.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real will politically in Israel to go to war with Hezbollah. Um, you could make the argument whether Hezbollah really wants to go to war. If Hezbollah really wanted to go to war, they would have gone in on October 8th, the
But
day after.
hold on, what I'm hearing here is that, and this is, I think this is a good thing, that 63% of Israelis are saying, we've had enough of living like this. We've lived
Exactly what
like
it
this
is.
since 1948. It's time for us to bring it to an end.
It that is obvious, and it shows the detachment, the being divorced from reality that not only the American government and certainly the Europeans, but possibly more and more of Jewish Americans
Yeah.
who are under there's a true element of cognitive dissonance that they think once this war with Gaza, with Hamas is over, that somehow things will go back and be quiet for them.
Hmm.
This is the thing. Here it is. We're on the verge, literally hours away, 48 hours. Where are we? Wednesday? Yeah. From Purim.
Yeah.
Tanit Esther, the fast of Esther, is Friday. Purim is celebrated throughout Israel except Jerusalem from Saturday night to Sunday night. Jerusalem gets its whole day to itself, Sunday night to Monday night.
Mm.
Long story.
Okay.
So the question came up recently. So what's the difference between American Jews and the Jews of Shushan? The
Mm.
Jews of Shushan, when facing extinction, banded together and fought and killed our enemies, those that would destroy us. Ain't gonna happen in America, kids.
Yeah.
I was thinking. I've spent a lot of time since this war started, and watching the violent demonstrations and attacks on Jews throughout the world. Um, you know, nice places like Beverly Hills, Newton, Massachusetts, not just New York City. And in my delusional memories, I'm thinking of my friends and I who would go to demonstrations and start riots and throw rocks and break windows and do all the crazy things we did. We were a minority of a minority of a tiny group
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
The vast majority of Jewish Americans, those most identified with their Jewish identity, so it was the modern Orthodox Jewish community, thought that we were like a bunch of like Jewish hooligans. In fact, the very first ad for JDL, for the Jewish Defense League, was a guy by the name of James Foreman, was a black militant.
Hmm.
He was going to go to Temple Emmanuel, the largest Reform edifice in New York City, and demand reparations. Now, the irony is slavery in America was over before the vast majority of Jewish Americans, their ancestors, came to the shores of the United
Yeah,
States.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay. So a bunch of guys from JDL, I mean, I was a young kid at the time, stood on the steps of Temple Emmanuel. They were wearing berets, black berets, the issue of the Black Panther Party at the time, dark sunglasses, chains, and bats. And the title of the ad was, "Is this any way for nice Jewish boys to behave?" So in my mind, we were a big thing. We
Hmm.
were a minority of a minority. So there are real reasons to believe that the Jewish life in America as we know it has hit a downturn that it's never going to come back from.
I'd say so. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Now, I have to be honest with our listeners, if not just to you, Mike. I'm very much out of touch with what rank and file Jewish Americans believe or think.
Hmm.
I had some interaction with relatives um, that just left me, scratching the back of my head. The kind of people, just give this as an example, whose source of news about Israel is the New York Times. I mean, and it's
Yeah.
not like they don't have, high-speed internet where they can't read Israeli sources.
Well, these are the same people
Okay,
that are
let's put,
posting.
I'm sorry.
They're posting memes about Israel and about I'm proud to be Jewish and but have never been to Israel once.
For those people posting things like that, I would love to ask them, yo, between you and I, what is it about being Jewish that you're most proud of? Now, I'm not assuming someone
Yeah.
will say anything relating to actual Jewish life, like studying the Torah, like
Mhm.
observing Shabbat, like eating kosher. I'm not expecting that, but what is it? I mean, I see the same things you do. And it's possible we're even looking at the posts of some of the same people.
Yeah,
It's
and I
possible.
mean, yeah, and because of that is the only reason why I don't respond. Though I'd love
It's
to.
okay. Now, let's pause for a second. Much of the world is tired with this war.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're done. They're done.
Now, there is a some things going on in people's heads where they'll stand out there and scream, ceasefire now. And again, no one's talking about surrendering our hostages.
No.
Ceasefire now. And then a moment later, they're calling for an intifada, to globalize the intifada. In other words, attack Jews everywhere in the world. So it's kind of like I'm sitting there saying, this is so bizarre. But let
It
me
is.
pause for a second. I mean, I could, keep talking about, Schumer and Biden and, that whole collection. Um, although I do have to say something, I think the vast majority of our listening folks in America will be voting for Donald Trump. Now, Trump made a statement the other
Oh
day,
yeah.
okay, that if you vote Democrat, you hate Israel and you hate your religion. Once again, Donald Trump speaking about Israel, and I have to step in and say, yo, Don, you're wrong. They don't hate Israel. Israel's not on their agenda.
Well, that's a
Okay.
better. Yeah. Okay. Somebody send this to Trump.
Yeah, this is, and okay, let's pause for a second. The other day, it was announced that one of our soldiers, one of our officers that we had believed to have been
Hmm.
kidnapped alive. Captain Daniel Peretz was pronounced dead. May Hashem and the IDF avenge his blood. I know his father.
Oh,
His father was a rabbi in South Africa. I was in South Africa with a Jewish organization that I worked for back in the early 2000s. I think it was 2006. And he was the Rav, the rabbi responsible for in American terms, what we would call the modern Orthodox Jewish community. Very heavily Zionist involved. Rav Peretz is currently the head of World Mizrahi, which is the
mm,
religious Zionist movement throughout the world. I mention this because this is not the first connection of knowing someone who knew someone who was killed.
yeah,
And I am a person with minimal Israeli connections. I've been here for less than 15 years. It is ongoing and overwhelming.
yeah, it is.
So when we look out at Jewish communities throughout the world and we look at those supporters who are out there outside of the Jewish community, and when we feel, because it's palpable, that they're getting fatigued, they're tired of this. In some cases, people are tired of raising money. They're tired of sending volunteer groups. Um, there is, what they call, some are calling it witness tourism. That's when we bring buses down to the communities in the Gaza envelope, and you go to the field where the Nova dance party was. Um, that's about as appealing to me personally
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No,
as
thanks.
going to Auschwitz.
No, thanks. Yeah.
I know for some people, particularly high school or post high school, it's a very meaningful experience. The March of the Living. Um, my sources, people I know, have been telling me that people who live in those Gaza communities are not thrilled with people coming in and peering at their lives.
Yeah. You're
Uh,
making it a museum.
yeah, where people are already living or still
Yeah.
living, excuse me.
Yeah. It's like going into the zoo and, visiting the monkey cage to some people. I want to go back real quick and, I got to
Yeah.
go pretty soon. Um, Back to Donald Trump. I think what Trump was trying to say was in typical Donald Trump. He doesn't think through things a lot. Um, but I think you're exactly right on this, Hanok. But there's not I don't know there's many Israeli Jews or American Jews that would say that they hate Israel. They're probably a handful somewhere. They're that
Yeah.
delusional. But the vast majority would say, "Oh no, I love Israel," but they don't want to have anything to do with it.
It,
It's
it,
it's it's
I'm not
it's
even
a
sure
great
that they
meme.
would say they loved Israel. It's
It-
essentially like I don't relate to it. It's like
yeah.
when people try
Okay.
to engage me in American sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I don't
I
care.
was in the US during the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and like I didn't even know the teams that were playing.
Yeah. I know.
Or
I didn't either.
I don't, and I'm now like a generation removed from who are even active players.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
everyone,
it's like me trying to engage you in mowing my yard. you know.
there are some new experiences that people just don't have to experience.
Yeah. And so when people go to American Jews to a synagogue or something, and they're trying to, they walk in expecting that group of people to be engaged in Israel, they're not.
This is the most common question I have gotten in 11 years of traveling to the US and speaking, trying to understand because again, based on the sort of construct that people have in their minds, every Jewish American is someone who has a full Jewish education, was raised eating kosher, was raised observing Shabbat,
Hmm.
somehow for some reason walked away from it,
Hmm.
and they can't understand how they're so. And I keep explaining ad nauseum.
I know. I know.
Anyway, I know you're very pressed for time today. I do want to say quickly, I've purchased my tickets for the US. Um, haven't yet figured out how to pay for them, but I purchased them. I will be in the US arriving, I think it's the 17th or so of June. We'll be speaking until the very beginning of August. I think my last speaking engagement is with our dear friend Barry Phillips in
Hmm.
House of David on the 6th of August. It's gotten to be, Baruch Hashem, thank God, a pretty full schedule. I have a couple of little slots that I can, maybe add in if I'm local. And I look forward to seeing everybody.
Yeah.
Believe
And
it or
I'm
not, I mean,
working
three
on,
weeks away.
yeah,
It's
I'm
crazy.
working on 2 or 3 things here for you, by the way. So
Wonderful.
yeah, we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I've got an appointment. So sorry guys, I got to cut this a little short today, but, hold on. Thank you so much for your insights, and
My
really
pleasure.
got to think about that, about the American Jew and about Israel, and as far as what Donald Trump's, I think,
Yeah.
again, I think he was trying to say the right thing, but he normally doesn't
In the
accept.
same way that the if he doesn't win, there'll be a bloodbath.
Yeah, he uses the wrong terminology. Of course, he should take speaking lessons from me and you. He would stay out of
Right.
trouble.
Yeah. I never say anything ambiguous ever.
Never. All right.
Yeah.
See you next week. Talk to you
Thank
before
you,
that,
Mike.
probably.
Bye-bye.
Later.